Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Karen Johnson, and today I wanted to talk to you about a really important book. It's a book by Elizabeth Lesser, and the title is Cassandra Speaks. When women are the storytellers, the human story changes. And I do a lot of reading, and this is one of the most important books that I've read in a really long time. And I really wanted to talk about it a little bit with you so that I could share with you some of the wisdom and that you might be inspired to buy the book, read it yourself. There's lots of exercises in there, much more wisdom in there than I can go through in this short time, but I'm going to try to give you a little intro into the whole subject. So if you don't know Elizabeth Lesser, she's been active in spiritual circles for many, many, many years. She also wrote the book Broken Open. You might be familiar with that one. I know I read it myself many years ago. And she is also one of the founders of the Omega Institute. And she also has a few TED Talks, and she's on the list of Oprah's Super Soul 100, a collection of people that use their voices and talent to help humanity. So that's a little bit of introduction into Elizabeth, and so I totally encourage you to read this book and hear her voice and how she's put together material that I think is so important for the human dialogue. So the book is kind of divided into three sections that are really powerful, and then a lot of things at the end. But the three sections, the first one deals with origin stories, or three origin stories of Eve, Pandora, and Cassandra. And so all of these stories were written in a way that depict women in very negative ways, shifting shame, blame, and guilt onto women. And so Elizabeth talks about the story of Eve and said, what if it were rewritten? What if it had a different ending? What if it was written as a hero's journey, where Eve was able to return home as a whole person? Just tweaking these old stories and rewriting them in a way that empowers women and comes from a perspective that women are not guilty, they're not filled with shame, blame, or guilt, and rewriting these stories so that our culture also shifts around them. So the second part of the book talks about women in power and how women often don't relate to power. They say, I don't want power. Not that we want powerlessness, but we can't relate to power as it's been portrayed as power over, which has an aspect of dominance and violence in it. And so a lot of people have looked at why women are different. Long ago, many years ago, early 1930s, there's research by Walter Cannon that men under stress go into fight or flight. And in the early 2000s, a woman called Shelley Taylor did research on women and women rats and women monkeys. And women don't tend to go into fight or flight. They tend to go into tend and befriend. So that's another reason that women just don't resonate with patriarchal male aspects and portrayal of power. And so I love this by Elizabeth Lesser. She even changes the words in the dialogue. So she talks a lot about how in our culture, we have a lot of symbols of war around us, statues and war memorials and all those kind of things, and very few memorials to anything else in our culture. And often much of our dialogue, many of the words we use also are war related. So she said, what if we changed them? What if we changed the dialogue and avoided war related words for a whole day? And say things that are organic, like lay a foundation, hammer out an agreement, replace the weak planks, create a better blueprint. How about sowing seeds, reaping harvest, till the soil, unravel the stitches, reframe the picture, sketch out objectives, weave a new pattern, spice up an old recipe, stir the soup, recast an argument, paint over a problem, get everyone on board. How about that one? Find the shortest distance. Row toward a solution. Map out a new territory. Replace those instead of zero-sum game. And many of the other war-related words that we tend to use so often in this country as descriptive words. So I love this, and I hope strongly that you can resonate with this too. And the third area that Elizabeth talks about in this book is a brave new ending. And you may have heard this as becoming a very popular saying, do no harm and take no shit. And so that's the new mantra for women. You know, we are often portrayed as too hysterical, too emotional, too soft, but we also know how to say no. You know, even Pachamama, Mother Earth, is often portrayed as this nourishing mother, which is all great, but she also can be very fierce, and she also sends hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes and many other things to have us wake up. So, and many of the old stories, the really original stories of these gods and goddesses, had this aspect of the divine mother, this divine mother that was equal to the divine masculine. And we've forgotten that. And we've instead had women be subservient to men. So it's wonderful that women are nurses and teachers and all those wonderful things, but yet we need to step up and step out and take on roles that have power and prestige, because women are very successful in what they do. And we know this because even with this COVID pandemic crisis, the 5 countries that have done the best with the pandemic have been run by women. So one of them is New Zealand. And the Prime Minister of New Zealand didn't just decide that she was going to make her up her own mind and do it her own way. She consulted experts all over the world. She was able to say, gosh, I don't know. What do we do? Give me information. Help us decide. Her ego was not wrapped up in saying, I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going to ignore it, or I'm going to do anything. She consulted. And so women as leaders do things very differently. And we can embrace and include and reach out and find out information in a different way. We don't have to embrace those old masculine paradigms of how power has to look. And a final area that Elizabeth touches on, and I think is so powerful, is a shadow question for women. Something that she says she continually grapples with, this concept that we are asking men to be more vulnerable and communicative, and yet we hold them to the old standards of manhood. We encourage them to be sensitive, caring, and vulnerable. And then when they show signs of weakness or self-doubt or fear, we don't like it so much. We judge it. And this isn't fair. So, something to really think about. And research professor and author Brené Brown has also looked into this question about groups of men that she's been leading on the subject of men, shame, and vulnerability. And she says she was not prepared to hear over and over from men in these interview groups how the women, mothers, sisters, girlfriends, wives in their lives are constantly criticizing them for not being open and vulnerable and intimate. But when they do open up, when real vulnerability happens in men, these same women recoil with fear or disappointment, even disgust. And Brené Brown says after driving home, she realized she recognized in herself that same kind of behavior. And suddenly she thought, holy shit, I am the patriarchy. And I think if I leave you with anything, that I would like to leave you with that, to examine in ourselves as women how we have absorbed the patriarchy and how we might belittle other women who are stay-at-home mothers, who are taking care of the elderly, who are providing a lot of resources. And really we aggrandize and find more exciting women who have exciting jobs in position of power. For me, that happened to me. I mean, I became a judge, I became a lawyer. You know, I wanted to put all that woman stuff behind me. I didn't think that had a whole lot of value. I didn't see it as, and I didn't see myself as actually being the patriarchy, but I do now. And so I think if we can all look inside ourselves and see what we're doing, we're asking men for vulnerability and openness and intimacy, and yet in some way we want them to play those old roles. We want them to be that knight in shining armor that's going to come along and take care of everything. We want that rich guy who's going to keep us. We want everything to be taken care of. We don't want to have responsibility. So, not that it's true for all of us, but I think if you can find that in yourself, some aspect of it, you can heal that shadow side, heal the patriarchy within you. And so, good to see you all again. Thank you for listening. I'm going to put up a link to an interview between Brene Brown and Elizabeth Lesser, which is really a fabulous thing too. So many blessings. I hope you enjoy this book, and I encourage you to read it and take it in and find that shadow part of yourself. Find the patriarchy within you. Many blessings. Love you.